Hi, everyone. So today I want to discuss why there's such a push to keep America a Judeo-Christian nation. Um, I just read chapter 8 of The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it's very interesting. But before I get into that, I do want to show y'all some biblical verses, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to show y'all what the agenda is and why the fact that America is moving away from Christianity is such a problem. Okay, so just a few of them. Romans 13, verses 1 through 4. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to conduct. I mean, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. Oh my gosh, this is so terrible. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God and avenger of who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be put in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. Hebrews 13, verse 7. Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls as though who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you. That would be no advantage to you. Again, I'm not going to read all of them. Some of these are repetitive. Peter, 1 Peter 13 through 7, be subject to the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be the emperor or supreme, as to governors that sent to him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. This is terrible. Let me see one more. I'm trying to find a good one. It's so repetitive. It's the same thing throughout the New Testament, but this is also the Old Testament. It's basically telling you to obey your masters like a slave. It's telling you to pay your taxes and not to do it begrudgingly. You're supposed to be happy about it. 1 Corinthians, but I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ. The head of so it's preaching obedience to the government. It's telling wives to submit to their husbands. It's telling slaves to obey their masters. But our citizenship is in heaven, and from it we await a Savior, your Lord Jesus Christ. So it's basically telling you this life doesn't matter. Obey your masters. You're going to get your reward when you go to heaven. And this is what Jean-Jacques Rousseau addressed in chapter 8 of the Social Contract. So all this stuff, this is not done by accident. This is done by design. And he lays it out from the beginning to where we are right now. So I'm going to I highlighted it because the last time I just read through more than I needed to, so I'm only going to read the part that is relevant. So this is chapter 8, and this is talking about civil religion. Because there's theism, right? But there's also a sectarian component for it. That you're supposed to take the Christian values, even if you're not a Christian. They want this to be a Judeo-Christian nation. This is the reason why Muslims are a threat, but I guess immigrants from South America are not a threat because they're at least Christian. I mean, they don't say this because they don't want to be discriminatory, but they want to keep America a Christian nation because it's easier to control us this way. It's easier to maintain a civilized society with a nation of um, Jews and Christians. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Let's see if I have any. Okay, no comments yet. All right, let me make sure. Okay, y'all. Okay, let me go ahead and get started. At first, men had no king save the God and no government save theocracy. They reasoned like Caligula, and at that period, reasoned aright. It takes a long time for feelings so to change that men can make up their mind to take equals as masters in the hope they will profit by doing so. From the mere fact that God was set over every political society, it followed that there were as many gods as peoples. Two peoples that were strangers the one to the other and almost always enemies, could not long recognize the same master. Two enemies giving battle could not obey the same master. National divisions thus led to polytheism, and this in turn gave rise to theology and civil intolerance, which we shall see hereafter are by nature the same. Okay, so originally, when you go back to the beginning, there were no governments, right? Everybody was in a state of nature, which was atheistic. So, and then, I mean, I think it really began with sun worship. They looked up to the stars and started making up these stories about gods. But it came to a point where men were saying that they were gods. So Caligula, and not just Caligula, but Caesar, those Romans were saying that they were gods. And because people had already believed in God, or they believed in the concept of God, but it wasn't organized the way it is right now. They basically worshiped those men as if they were gods. So then it became a point where we had kings and emperors, but it's the same thing right now. We may not have kings, but what we have is the state, and the state is the sovereign. The state performs the same role as a king. The state is sovereign. So when you obey the state or you worship the state, you're a statist. It's the same thing as saying that the state is your God. Statism is a religion, or he calls what is it, a civil religion. But he's making it seem like it's a good thing. Um, it's almost like he's saying, okay, I don't. Let me go ahead and go further before I start telling you what he actually said. If it is as how in pagan times, where each state had its cults and its gods, there were no wars of religion, I answer it was precisely because each state having its own cult as well as its own government made no distinction between the gods and its laws. Political war was also theological. The providences of the gods were, so to speak, fixed by boundaries of nations. The god of one people had no right over another. But when Jews, being subject to the kings of Babylon and subsequently to those of Syria, still obstinately refused to recognize any god save their own, their refusal was regarded as rebellion against their conqueror and threw down on them persecutions we read in their history, which are without parallel till the coming of Christianity. Um, so, I mean, we all know about Christians being persecuted and executed and martyrdom But I mean, that whole history really started with Jews not obeying the government because they didn't. Again, when you go back to the beginning, the institutions of government were based on the fact that the rulers were gods, and so the Jews rejected that, right? Um, I need to read more about the Bible because I really need to see if there really is any difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It seems like to me that they're saying the same thing, but no, the Jews refuse to recognize the sovereign authority. But and I don't want to be offensive, but I don't understand why Jews today would be statists, right? Because if you, especially if you are an Orthodox Jew, then you really should be an atheist because when you support statism, you're essentially saying that the government is your God. The government can't be your sovereign if you recognize God as your sovereign. I mean, it's the two things are incompatible. I do see how it's compatible when you bring the New Testament into the picture, but no, when it comes to the Old Testament, that makes absolutely no sense. Every religion, therefore, being attached solely to the laws of the state which prescribed it, there was no way of converting a people except by enslaving it. That's why we had all those wars because they were trying to convert people to Christianity. And therefore, and there could be no missionaries save conquerors. The obligation to change cults being a law to which the vanquished yielded, it was necessary to be victorious before suggesting a change. So these Christians never went around convincing people to become Christian just by living by example, showing kindness. No, they went around slaughtering people and forcing them to become Christian. I mean, the only way to spread Christianity was through war. It was a bloody endeavor. And now we're trying to make it seem like Christianity is so benevolent and it's all about love. No, that's not the history of Christianity from anybody's perspective. I mean, this is revisionist history that we're pretending that Christians are so meek and mild. Well, okay, he does explain all that. Um, he does explain that. It was in these circumstances that Jesus came to set up on earth a spiritual kingdom, which by separating the theological from the political system, made the state no longer and brought about the internal divisions which have never ceased to trouble Christian peoples. As the new idea of kingdom of the other world could never have occurred to pagans, they always looked on the Christians as really rebels who, while feigning to submit, were only waiting for the chance to make themselves independent and their masters and to usurp by God the authority they pretended in their weakness to respect. This was the cause of their persecutions. Um, I'm going to keep going because he does explain it, and I'm not going to comment yet. What the pagans had feared took place. Then everything changed its aspect. The humble Christians changed their language, and soon this so called kingdom of the other world turned, under a visible leader, into the most violent of earthly despotisms. However, as there have always been a prince and civil laws, this double power and conflict of jurisdiction have made all good policy impossible in Christian states, and men have never succeeded in finding out whether they were bound to obey the master or the priest. Several peoples, however, in Europe and its neighborhood have desired without success to preserve or restore the old system, but the spirit of Christianity has everywhere prevailed. The sacred cult has always remained or again become independent of the sovereign, and there has been no necessary link between it and the body of the state. I want y'all to know, I think I missed it. There was a part that I wanted to comment on earlier. um, when he was talking about Christianity, that the version of Christianity that most people follow today is not the original meaning of Christianity. Um, I'm not going to call myself a Christian because Christianity has a completely different connotation from what it originally was supposed to mean. The Gnostic version, which has been suppressed, has been replaced with this slave version that everybody follows now. Um, and back then, Christianity was considered an occult. Um, yeah, I would say that I'm a true Christian because Christianity is not really a religion. It's a hidden message that teaches you. It's basically about freeing your mind. It's not about there is no eternal life. It's okay, I don't want to get into that, but basically Jean-Jacques Rousseau acknowledged the original meaning of Christianity. It's not what it means today. They turned it into something else so that they can enslave you. Among us, the kings of England have made themselves heads of the church, and the czars have done the same. But this title has made them less its masters than its ministers. They have gained not so much the right to change it as the power to maintain it. They are not its legislatures, but only its princes. Wherever the clergy is a corporate body, it is master and legislature in its own country. There are thus two powers, two sovereigns in England and in Russia, as well as elsewhere. Um, I think everybody recognized that before that the Catholic Church was really the ruler of Europe, the Pope. And when people talk about these conspiracy theories about who's really controlling the world, it always goes back to the Vatican. It goes they're secretly controlling things now. People think that it would okay, when you look at the history of governments, it's always been a division between the Catholics, the Moors, and then the Jews. But the Jews were kind of separate. They were not really, I mean, I would say that the Jews and the Catholics were basically they had an alliance with each other. And there's some ancient edict where they actually did divide roles. So I would say Jews and Catholics are basically the same thing. And then you have the Moors doing their own thing. Um, but at the same time, when you look at the Salem witch trials, it's like the government was always the church. They were the ones going around persecuting people, and then you would have a military that basically carried out the acts of the church. And it's the same thing right now. We just don't see it. We think that it's the government pulling the strings, but no, it's not. Um, it's not. I don't think that it's even so now. I think that the religious institutions are dominating government. This is right. Even though they're not even a majority, it's like the evangelicals, the even Scientologists, the Mormons. Those are the real political institutions that are pulling the strings of everybody in America. We just don't see it, especially those of us who are not involved in religion. We think it's just the government. No, there's layers to this stuff, and at the very top are the religious institutions. Okay, do I have any assholes, especially high functioning, tend to do very well? Clearly, you're not one. Um, no, but I'm thinking that if you're going to fight power, you really have to align yourself with some kind of religious institution. And I'm thinking it's going to be the Moors for me. But yeah, I don't think like he lays it out. He explains how we got to where we are right now. No state has ever been founded without a religious basis. And to the latter, the law of Christianity at bottom does more harm by weakening than good by strengthening the constitution of the state. Again, let that sink in. No state has ever been founded without a religious basis. They were all founded by the religions. They were the basis of even America. I'm not sure that they were okay. They were Christian, but they weren't the traditional Christians that we know today. They were Gnostic Christians. Like they understood. They didn't take the Bible literally the way that we do. Or I'm not going to say we because I don't. They had a completely different understanding of what God meant, of what divinity. Like the problem with Christians, they take it literally, and that's it's completely wrong. Religion considered in relation to society, which is neither general or particular, may also be divided into two kinds: the religion of man and that of the citizen. The first, which has neither temples nor altars nor rites, and is confined to the purely internal cult of the supreme God and the eternal obligations of morality, and the religion of the gospel, pure and simple, the true theism, what may be called natural divine right or law. So the first one is civil religion, and then we have a theistic religion. The other, which is codified in a single country, gives its God its tutelary patrons, and that just means guardian. So the people who fight the wars for the Catholic Church or the Christian nation, um, yeah, they're not necessarily Christian. It has its dogmas, its rights, its external cult prescribed by law outside the single nation that follows it. All the world in a single, in its sight, infidel, foreign, and barbarous. The duties and rights of men extend for it only as far as own its own affairs. The second is good in that it unites a divine cult with loves of the law and making country the object of the citizens' adoration teaches them that service done to the state is service done to this tutelary God. So when you obey, this is how they think. When you obey, they always talk about God and country, right? If you serve the state, if you fight for your country, then you're serving God. Um, Yeah, this is so interesting. It's a form of theocracy in which there can be no pontiff save the prince. So the pontiff is the pope or the bishop. I think most people today consider the pontiff to be the pope. Um, My brother was telling me there's a black pope. I don't know enough about the Catholic Church, but the black pope is supposed to be the highest of the high. Like he's the one controlling the Catholic Church. He's not even within public view. So you have the white pope that goes around talking to people, but there's another one who's over him that most of us are not privy to. To die for one's country then becomes martyrdom, violation of its laws, impiety, and to subject one who is guilty to public execration is to condemn her to the anger of the gods. This is how these people see it. They worship the government and they think that obeying the law or disobeying the laws is the worst thing ever. Even if you didn't harm anybody, there's layers to this. It's like this is the reason why they're so willing to obey because on a subconscious level, when they disobey the government, they think they're disobeying the God, their God. So if you run a red light or if you go over the speed limit, they think that it's inherently wrong because they're disobeying God. They may not say that, and they may not even consider themselves to be religious, but they consider the government to be their God. So they're not going to disobey. They're not going to protest because they see the government as being legitimate. They see it as being something divine, something that can't be challenged. They're never going to rise up and rebel against the government. On the other hand, it is bad in that being founded on lies and error, it deceives men, makes them credulous and superstitious, and drowns the true cult of the divinity in empty ceremonial. This is what I'm trying to tell y'all. There's a difference between the Gnostic version of Christianity and the version that people follow today. It's ceremonial and superstitious. Um, you think that you're going to pray and God's going to answer your prayers. That's not how Christianity works. That's the fake version of Christianity. The ones that's not true Christianity. That's bullshit. They turn Jesus into some kind of Santa Claus. It is bad again when it becomes tyrannous and exclusive and makes a people bloodthirsty and intolerant. So it breathes fire and slaughter and regard as sacred act the killing of every other who does not believe in its gods. The result is to place such a people in a natural state of war with all others so that its security is deeply endangered. Um, if you look at it, America and Israel is in a perpetual state of war. You don't see all these countries going to war with people all the time. It's ridiculous because it's because of this Judeo-Christian bullshit. It's not it's not for anything else. I mean, you can say that it's about power, but when you look at the um underpinnings of it, it's really religious. And even if it's not like actual religion, it's about the values of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Um, so Muslims are going to be a threat. I don't know why, like Hindus and Confucianists, and they're not considered a threat, but Muslims are a threat. I don't. Well, I do know why, because they don't teach their people to be sacrificial animals. I mean, they do teach like martyrdom, but in a different way. They don't teach people to obey the state the way that Christians do. Like they're going to rebel against the state. They don't care. Even when the Palestinians are getting bombed, they're still praising Allah. Like people were talking about, like, oh my gosh, if nothing, um, if nothing else was going to shake their faith, it should have been the fact that they had their families wiped out and their communities wiped out, and they still were praising Allah. Um, Yeah, I don't think that that Christians would see it that way. Like, yeah, um, yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. Let me see if I'm losing people here. Choosing a religion is a bit like voting from our perspective. I have no interest whatsoever in playground behavior. Yeah, yeah, you're a true Brit because we spell behavior without a U, and that's the way Jean-Jacques Rousseau spells it also. Okay, where was I? Oh, okay. There remains therefore the religion of man or Christianity, not the Christianity of today. That's what I'm trying to say. He's saying that there was a different version of Christianity before the one that we have today. Therefore remains, I'm sorry, there remains therefore the religion of man or Christianity, not the Christianity of today, but that of the gospel, which is entirely different. By means of this holy, sublime, and real religion, all men, being children of one God, recognize one another as brothers, and a society that unites them is not dissolved even at death. So there's only one religion. I mean, well, but again, I don't think their understanding of what the word God means is not the way Christians understand it today. When you look at the actual meaning of God, there's only one God, and it's not some man in the sky that you can pray to. Like it's basically this natural law. It's universal truth. It's not even, it has no actual consciousness. So um yeah, they got it completely wrong. Completely wrong. But this religion, having no particular relation to the body politic, leaves the laws in possession of the force they have in themselves without making any addition to it. And thus, one of the great bonds that unite society considered and severally fails to operate. Nay, more so far from bonding the hearts of the citizens of the state. It has the fact of taking them away from all earthly things. I know nothing more contrary to the social spirit. See, because Christians don't care about what's going on in this earth, right? They're focused on the afterlife. So they're so disconnected from this. It's of no consequence. Even during slavery, it's like your children are being brutalized. Oh, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Like they don't care. This is some extreme brainwashing. Um, you're not going to concern yourself with what's going on in this world because, uh, well, besides the fact that Christians nowadays are all about prosperity, they care about wealth. Yeah, when I was a Christian, that's not the way I saw it. I wasn't focused on wealth. I was focused on an afterlife, and it's kind of dangerous. We are told that a people of true Christians would form the most perfect society imaginable. I see this supposition only one great, excuse me, I see in this supposition only one great difficulty that a society of true Christians would not be a society of men. No, you wouldn't be a society of men if everybody was Christian. I say further that such society with all this perfection would neither be the strongest nor the most lasting. The very fact that it was perfect would rob it of its bond of union. The flaw that would destroy it would lie in its very perfection. Everyone would do his duty, the people would be law abiding, the rulers just and temperate, the magistrate upright and incorruptible. The soldiers would scorn death. There would be neither vanity nor luxury. So far, so good. But let us hear more. Christianity is a religion, excuse me, Christianity as a religion is entirely spiritual, occupied solely with heavenly things. The country of the Christian is not of this world. He does his duty indeed, but does it with profound indifference to the good or ill success of his cares. Provided he has nothing to reproach himself with, it matters little to him whether things go well or ill here on earth. If the state is prosperous, he hardly dares to share in the public happiness for fear he may grow proud of his country's glory. If the state is languishing, he bless the hand of God that is hard upon his people. This is how you enslave people. Even during I told y'all during slavery, it's like you just um you're gonna bless whatever scraps you're given. The masses beating your child, but so what? He didn't kill him. You don't. You're eating some scraps, some pig slop, but oh, thank the Lord we have something to eat. This whole positive, this toxic positivity of blessing God for whatever you have without considering what you don't have. Um, you can't even be happy when things are going good because you don't care. You're so disconnected from this world. This is a very dangerous way of looking at things. For the state to be peaceable and for harmony to be maintained, all citizens without exception would have to be good Christians. If by ill hap there should be a single self seeker or hypocrite, he certainly would get the better of his pious compatriots. Christian charity does not readily allow a man to think hardly of his neighbors. As soon as by some trick he has discovered the art of imposing on them and getting hold of a share in a public authority, you have a man established in his dignity. It is the will of God that he be respected. Very soon you have a power. It is God's will, it will be obeyed. I'm scared. It is God's will that will be obeyed. If the power is abused by him who wills it, it is discouraged within. God punish his children. Excuse me, his children. There will be scruples about driving out the usurper. Public tranquility would have to be disturbed, violence would have to be employed, and blood spilt. All this accords ill with Christian meekness. And after all, in this vale of sorrows, what does it matter whether we are free men or serfs? Serfs meaning a slave or indentured servant, excuse me. The essential thing is to get to heaven, and resignation is only an additional means of doing so. So they don't care. They don't care about how enslaved they are. They don't care about, they have no self-respect. They're all about being humble and about being subservient. Guys, when have you ever seen a real Christian revolt in history? They don't fight. They just obey like slaves. Like this is the reason why it was so important to indoctrinate the Africans who were brought here to make them Christian. Once you enslave their minds, then everything else is easy. If war breaks out with another state, the citizens march readily out to battle. Not one of them thinks of flight. They do their duty, but they have no passion for victory. They know better how to die than how to conquer. This is how Christians think. They just want to die. They want to be sacrificial animals. What does it matter whether they win or lose? Does not providence know better than what is meet for them? It should be met. Only to think what account a proud, impetuous, and passionate enemy could turn their stoicism. Set over them generous peoples who were devoured by ardent love of glory and their country. Imagine your Christian republic face to face with Sparta or Rome. The pious Christians will be eaten and crushed and destroyed before they know where they are, or will owe their safety only to the contempt their enemy will conceive for them. Conceive for them. So yeah, if they were really Christian, they wouldn't even be fighting war. They would just turn the other cheek and get slayed. So you really need to have people who aren't Christians to protect the Christians because they're too weak. They're not going to fight. I'm talking about the way that they say, if they actually believe what's written in the Bible, especially in the New Testament. Oh no, Christians are not going to fight. So you're going to need some heathen like me to protect the Christians because they don't protect themselves. They're not going to protect the Republic. And I was in the military, and they started trying to preach that shit about trying to say that Christians are supposed to fight war. No, it doesn't say that in the Bible. Yeah, they they have those chaplains that try to and back then it was the war in Iraq. They were trying to sell the war in Iraq as an act of God. I'm like, this is bullshit. No, this is not. This is evil. And I had to walk out one of those. It was a Protestant chapel, and yeah, he was. I mean, you can't say anything because even though it's a church, it's you're still in the military. They outrank you, so I get he was a captain or whatever he was, so he outranked me. I couldn't say anything. The only thing I could do was get up and leave. But I am mistaken in speaking of a Christian republic. The terms are mutually exclusive. You can't have a Christian republic. Somebody's going to have to actually do the fighting. Christianity preaches only servitude and dependence. Its spirit is so favorable to tyranny that it always profits by such a regime. True Christians are made to be slaves, and they know it and do not much mind. This short life counts too little in their eyes. Christians are made to be slaves. I shall be told that Christian troops are excellent. I deny it. Show me an instance. For my part, I know no Christian troops. I shall be told of the Crusades. Without disputing the valor of the Crusaders, I answer that so far from being Christians, they were the priests, soldiers, or soldiery, citizens of the church. They fought for their spiritual country, which the church had somehow or other made temporal. Well understood, this goes back to paganism. As the gospel sets up no national religion, a holy war is among, excuse me, a holy war is impossible among Christians. No, the Christians are not going to do the fighting, but they're going to sing your heathen ass to go die for them. They're not going to do shit. Under the pagan emperors, the Christian soldiers were brave. Every Christian writer affirms it, and I believe it. It was a case of honorable emulation of the pagan troops. As soon as the emperors were Christian, this emulation no longer existed. And when the cross had driven out the eagle, Roman valor wholly disappeared. No, I mean, that's why you can have a leader like Trump um, telling people. I mean, that's why the evangelicals support Trump, and they even said it. There was an evangelical on the View trying to explain why Christians support Trump, because Trump is a heathen like us. He knows how to fight other heathens. They're not going to do it, so they see him as their protector. The subjects then owe the sovereign an account of their opinions only to such an extent as they matter to the community. Now it matters very much to the community that each citizen should have a religion. That will make him love his duty. But the dogmas of that religion concern the state and its members only so far as they have reference to morality and the duties which he who professes them is bound to do to others. It's not the religion that they care about. It's about the fact that you are willing to obey. That's the important part. So that's the civil religion. It's not the theistic part. They don't care about that. As long as you're willing to do your duty and not question your master, that's the important part. Each man may have, over and above the opinion he pleases, without being the sovereign's business, to take cognizance of them. For as the sovereign has no authority in the other world, whatever the lot of its subjects may be in the life to come, that is not its business, provided they are good citizens in this life. Right. It doesn't matter what your religion is. Um, the what matters is the civil religion, that you're willing to obey the state, and they think Christians make better civil citizens, and that's the reason why they want to keep this country a Judeo-Christian nation. If you're an atheist like me, there's no God compelling me to obey the state. I don't give a shit about the state. But a Christian sure as hell does. They don't give a shit because they're going to get their reward in the afterlife. They don't have any problem enslaving their own children. My dad even told me that. I was talking to my dad about, me being an anti-natalist. And he was talking about how cruel this world is, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get rewarded in heaven. So you just brought me into hell knowing he knew full and damn well he was oppressed as a child. Brought me into hell just so that I can get a reward in heaven. This is how these Christians think. Let me see if I have any comments before. I'm almost done. This is page 6. Those of us that want freedom have to deal with the consequences of the majority and their desire for slavery. All right. Well, good night. Therefore is a purely civil profession of faith, which the sovereign should fix the articles, not exactly as religious dogma, but as social sentiments without which a man cannot be a good citizen or faithful subject. So they don't care about the religion, as long as you accept the dogma of it or the civil religious aspect of it. That's the important part. The fact that you're not going to cause problems. That's what they care about. They don't care about what your actual religion is. Okay, so that answers my original question. The Indians and the Confucianists and whoever else, they're not a threat. But there are certain religions that are a threat, and they think Muslims are a threat. While it can compel no one to believe them, it can banish from the state whoever does not believe them. It can banish him not for impiety, but as being an antisocial being, incapable of truly loving the laws of justice and of sacrificing at need his life to his duty. They want you to be a sacrificial animal. They want you to lay down and die and actually be happy about it, to obey the state. This is so dangerous, and this is the way most people think, right? They love the state even more than they love their own children, even more than they love humanity. They worship the. I'm sorry, but statism is a religion. They worship the government. Um, they can see their own person, their own neighbor being oppressed by the police, and they're going to side with the police. They could even see their own child getting brutalized, and a lot of times they will still side with the damn state. Statism is a religion. If anyone, after publicly recognizing these dogmas, behaves as he does not believe them, let him be punished by death. He has committed the worst of all crimes, that of lying before the law. Um, I'm not lying. I never said that I worship the state. I never said I was the government's slave. Um, it's not it's not what you actually believe. What he says is the behavior. You're behaving as if you don't believe in statism. That is worthy of death. Okay, and it's like what I said in my last live stream when I was talking about the chapter one, the social contract. Um, what did he say? He says that those who do not obey the social contract will be forced to be free. Okay, so you're going to force me to be free. What? And I asked the question in that live stream. What do you think that means? Because you're going to force me to be free. I have to obey these unjust laws, which I never gave any consent to. But under the law, I don't even have the right to die. So how do you opt out? Who's going to force me to be free? Right? He's saying that the punishment is worthy of death, that you violated the social contract. Okay, but no, they're not going to let you die. They're just going to make you stay here in perpetuity as a miserable subject. Um, you don't even have the right to die unless you commit murder. So basically, I would have to violate someone else in order to invoke my natural right to die. That's absolutely absurd. If I don't want to obey the laws and if I don't want to be a subject, I should be able to opt out. But no, not under these laws. The dogmas of civil religion ought to be few, simple, and exactly worded without explanation or commentary, right? What is a civil religion? I guess we have the Constitution. Not to violate anybody's right to life, liberty, or property. Um, do unto Basically it's the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. But if you see yourself as a slave and you want to be enslaved, then you're going to do to me what you would also accept. So I don't think that the golden rule is necessarily going to protect my rights as a human being because you like being enslaved and I don't. So you're willing to accept a lot more than I'm willing to accept. The existence of a mighty, intelligent, and beneficent divinity possessed of foresight and providence, the life to come, the happiness of the just, the punishment of the wicked, the sanctity of the social contract, and the laws. These are its positive dogmas. Its negative dogmas I confine to one: intolerance, which is a part of the cults we have rejected. I don't know what you mean by intolerance. You're saying that anyone who doesn't agree with the social contract should be put to death. That sounds pretty intolerant to me. Those who distinguish civil from theological intolerance are, to my mind, mistaken. The two forms are inseparable. It is impossible to live at peace with those we regard as damned, right? So you don't reject their civil religion. You don't worship the state, and they're basically equating the sovereign, the state, as God. So you're damned. There, he's already saying that the theistic part of religion is not important. It's the fact that you accept the civil aspect of the religion. So if you don't accept the civil aspect, then you're damned. So me as an atheist, I'm damned. To love them would be to hate God who punishes them, right? I'm just damned. I'm just condemned. God punished me. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why my life is so terrible, because I'm being punished by God for not worshiping the state. We positively must either reclaim or torment them. Wherever theological intolerance is admitted, it must inevitably have some evil effect. As soon as it has such an effect, the sovereign is no longer sovereign, even in a temporal sphere. Thenceforth, priests are the real masters and kings only their ministers. This is the reason why I changed the title of this live stream several times, because I was trying to say what is the thesis of this? And I think this one line really sums it up. Priests are the real masters and kings only their ministers. So the religious institutions are really pulling the strings. We see it backwards. Like the governor, the president, they all serve these religious institutions. This is the reason why the evangelical, it's not just the evangelicals though. Um Jews, and I'm not talking about secular Jews. I'm talking about religious Jews, because if you're a secular Jew, you don't really have political power. Like it's the the Orthodox Jews, or not just Orthodox, but Hasidic, all of them. The religious institutions are controlling America, and they're controlling the world. The Catholics. Um, if you're an atheist, it's going to be hard to enslave you. Um, and so this is so confusing. I got to give this a whole lot of thought, because I'm trying to figure out. Okay, I do know the answer. The answer is that the religious leaders have the truth. Even the Catholic Church, they have hidden texts that they haven't released to the proletariat. So we get the slave version of religion, and they don't even believe it at the top. Those religious leaders don't believe the stuff that they tell us. That's why they constantly contradict themselves. That's why they tell you not to be homosexual. Meanwhile, they get caught sleeping around with little boys. Um, so it's not about the religion. They tell us this shit because they want to enslave us. They don't give a shit about the religion. They're using the religion for political power. And the religious institutions are far more um powerful than the actual political institutions. The political institutions serve them. This is what Jean-Jacques Rousseau is saying. Now, there is and can no longer, excuse me, now there is and can no longer an exclusive national religion. Tolerance should be given to all religions that tolerate others, so long as their dogmas contain nothing contrary to the duties of citizenship, which I guess they deem that can Muslims have or their dogma is contrary to the duties of citizenship. But whoever dares to say outside the church there is no salvation ought to be driven from the state, unless the state is the church and the prince the pontiff. Okay, let me see if I have any comments. I think this is all. Let me read this. The reason for which Henry the Fourth is said to have embraced the Roman religion ought to make every honest man leave it, and still any prince who knows how to reason. Okay, so if I don't believe in a social contract, if I don't believe that I'm my brother's keepers, that I shouldn't be allowed to work unless I have a license from the government. I should be spied on. The government should be able to tell me who I can and can't have sex with. I should have to leave. But the question is, once they control the entire world, where are you supposed to go? Right? These same leaders control the entire globe. I can't even go to Africa because now Africa has been indoctrinated with this Christian bullshit. So there is no escaping this shit. There's no place to go. All right. That's all I have. It seems that I lost some people, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this live stream. Hopefully somebody gained something from this, but I did find this interesting because um I thought that the I thought that the religious institutions were sort of secondary to the government, but no, it's no, the hierarchy is that religions come first. So um yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end this because I already lost everybody. So y'all have a good day.